Yeah, carried. Thank you very much. Alright, where are we? Here we go. At 9:45. Annual business plan and budget. Kelly, I assume you're going to be talking this one?
Yes, I can do, thank you, through the chair. So we've had a number of council workshops going through the preparation of the budget, including some significant decisions that council needed to consider. The capital budget and the operating budget have been developed in those budget workshops with council, looking at the asset management plans for the capital budget, current needs, identified issues, etc. Working through to provide the draft statements and the draft annual business plan that's provided today. So happy for any questions. I'm sure there'll be a lot. Or comments and feedback that we can provide to council to assist them with their decision making.
Thank you. Just considering, and we'll go around the committee in a moment, but just considering any potential sensitivities over the Folsom Rec precinct. Obviously we had a special meeting on that matter because it is sensitive in nature. It's got commercial confidence information relating to it. I guess the call out to the committee is if we are going to go down that path, and I guess I'm also just checking with management if that's still, I believe that item still is in commercial confidence in many respects. But you know, I think we just as a committee need to consider if we are going to talk about those commercial aspects that we can consider if we do need to move it to confidence to do so. I'm not saying we'll do that now, but just be mindful as we discuss that point, given that it's a significant agenda item, a significant component of this agenda item. That we may need to be cautious how much we disclose at this point. I don't know if you think that's fair, Kelly Graham?
That's correct through the chair. It's still in confidence. There's elements that aren't that relate to land revocation that's actually gone to consultation today, but the bulk of the commercial conversations are still in confidence.
So if we are heading down that territory, if I can get you to call us up on the conversation and we will move into confidence if the committee agrees at that point. I just thought I'd put that out there now for the committee's consideration before we get into this point in full detail. All right, well, let's head around to the committee. David.
It's just a question. The current operating surplus ratio on page 34 shows minus 14.4%. And then your documentation here is saying that there's another 7.7 million required in 25-26. What would be our operating surplus ratio for that year? Because that gives having very low levels of the operating surplus deficit ratio in 2 years really is. So I'm just wondering how does that make council look in managing their finances? So what would be the following year? Would be greater than 14 then?
Yeah, so through the chair, it would be greater than a 14% deficit ratio. You're probably looking at above 20%, depending on what all the other numbers are as well. And essentially what we will need to do if the budget is endorsed and things progress as they are, is the long-term financial plan will need to be updated based on the decisions that have been made to show what impact that has going onwards. Currently, the long-term financial plan does include the expenditure as such, but it doesn't. What's included in the long-term financial plan doesn't impact the operating result. Mm-hmm. So there would be 2 years of significant deficit ratios and significant deficits in the current consideration. What needs to be shown is that council returns to a break-even type position after that, and then is sustainable going forward.
Yeah, I understand it's a forecasting process, and not quite sure how the interest rates are going to sit. So there's going to be more of a fixed or a loan principal interest rate.
Yeah, so through the chair, I would be suggesting potentially a fixed, not for the entire amount, but that is considered when we get to the point where those funds are actually required. And so it may be that a CAD, or a cash advance debenture, is used for a while, and then a certain percentage is fixed when the interest rates, when we have an idea about what's happening with interest rates. So there is a little bit of interest risk exposure there, but we have included it at the CAD rate, which is higher than fixed rate terms in the forecast.
So what would be our, if this goes ahead, and sort of, we don't know yet, but if it does go ahead, what will be our top borrowings? What will be around 20 or something million? And how do we pay down those borrowings?
So it would be somewhere around that, depending again on how everything else happens, on all the other numbers and what other expenditure we have that year. In terms of paying that down, you're aware we need to raise rates or revenue to cover our operating expenses, one of which is depreciation. We then use those funds to pay down debt as we go through, depending on how much is required for capital projects during that year. So we include repayments for both fixed term loans and CADs within the cash flow statement.
And we haven't got the final Prudential report yet.
Correct.
For council to make their final decision. I guess the risk, so have we done a risk matrix on this at this stage yet on whatever we do?
Not in terms of the finances. It's the long-term financial plan includes the dollar expenditure, so that's essentially showed the financial dollar risk. The risk, I guess, to council is more around the model that's being used and the community's expectations around that.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Michael?
There's a lot to unpack here. Where do we start? So I think the sort of consultant in me is kind of really excited and is commending the sort of bravery of council to think innovatively about a project like this and be prepared to put a budget out to its community that has two sort of large negative numbers. But that's not the hat I'm wearing at the moment. This is the Audit Risk Committee process, and I think we really need to make sure that all elected members fully understand what is being proposed here, and that the administration, I'm sure, will do as good a job as it can to try and explain the fact that one-off contributions towards operating deficits definitely have an impact on borrowings, but don't have an impact on council's longer-term financial sustainability. And I think the analysis that we don't have in this pack that is one that would shed that light is what we need is a side-by-side on the whole of life financial impacts of going down the path that council's going down in partnership model. Essentially looks like to me paying a grant to somebody to develop the facility on the community's behalf versus what it would cost council from a capital and operating perspective to develop the facility on its own. And it's only when you have that side-by-side comparison that you can put the current sort of position into context. So, without seeing the final commercials and understanding what risk council is exposing itself to under this model, I don't think we've got enough information to really say whether this is a good deal or not. We just need to, I guess, make sure that that information is coming and we can assess it when the time's right, but also the council is sort of, fully informed and has the ability to make an informed decision on this sort of couple of years of operating deficit. This is a really uncommon situation. I can't think of too many examples of where councils have put this sort of dollar figure up in an operating perspective. So, it's going to be something that's going to take a lot of education and explanation to your community.
Yeah, like one of the challenges here is we have had insight into a draft of Prudential over this proposed path, which I know you're aware of. The conversation we had at the meeting that you unfortunately couldn't make was on what are the risks, what are the commercial terms, and how does this actually benefit council in the long run, and the options effectively. So that was certainly the direction of the conversation, talking that. confidential meeting. So we really did, question, push, challenge, whichever term you want to use, the management team and the financial report in its development. And I applaud management for bringing it to us during its development, so we could provide some insight as it's being developed rather than waiting till the 11th hour and trying to rush something in. So, it was a good opportunity to discuss a lot of those points. But to your point, we don't have that, and we're trying to look at the budget and give some thoughts to a budget with a significant investment into the community without understanding this risk. So that is, I guess, the challenge that we have before us today in many respects. So I appreciate that. Kelly, do you want to add something to that?
Just in line with what you were saying before, the feedback from the audit committee was provided back, and the prudential report updated in terms of some of those considerations and the feedback that was provided. And once it is finalised, it will come back to the audit committee prior to any finalisation.
Yeah.
So can I just have a follow-on question just in terms of this issue, Kelly, is how the phasing of all this going to work? You've got, once this budget hits the community, the commercials, while the detail's not there, the council cash contributions is out there in the public eye. Where is the project at, and how is this all going to get phased out in conjunction with the releasing of the draft budget?
Yeah, through the chair, the timing's a little tricky in terms of the budget going out for consultation and the other processes that need to happen at the same time. But we're developing, we have developed some commentary within the annual business plan itself around that provides the information that we can make public, and there will need to be some reasonably significant fact sheets essentially around what this looks like for the community to be able to provide feedback during the consultation on the annual business plan, noting that there will be 2 years of large deficits going forward.
Was there consideration provided to excluding it from this budget setting process until a contract? I we don't even know a contract gets signed or anything like that. It feels early to go for me, but I don't have all the information. But I just want to make sure that
Agreed.
until the contract is signed on something like this, it feels early to be disclosing it to the community.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. It does feel a little bit early, but we received very strong feedback from the chamber that the community needed to know why their rates were going up, and that this needed to be included for the consultation phase.
Why do the rates need to go up?
So it's included in the report. That there is a rate increase, and there's also an index or an additional rate for the delivery of the sport and rec precinct. So it's in the report and in the annual business plan. The rate increase is...
I would just challenge that. If this is a 50-year asset, 1 extra year of rating is not material in the context of that. You can make that up in a future year, and council just wear the first $7 million payment and then catch that up later.
Because
we're not raising rates to cover the full $7 million, is what I'm saying. We're raising rates by 1.2%, presumably to cover the interest cost on the debt.
To cover the... Correct. So the 1.2% is to cover the interest costs on the debt, and the additional index will be, next year, will be again for the same, because we will be paying the additional amount and the interest on that. We're also playing catch up a little bit too. So the total rate rise is, we're recommending 6%.
And my concern, just on that point, is that, again, with the rider that I don't know where the commercial negotiations are at, is this the right time to be locking in that interest rate? Locking in that rate increase when we don't have a potentially assigned contract on development of this facility? And again, without all the context, it's very difficult to comment. So, and I appreciate you're in a difficult position here, but it doesn't feel like the right time to be going to the community for a rate rise before a contract would be my view.
I think the council, the chamber were concerned that it would be misleading to not provide the whole potential scenario up front. And if it doesn't proceed, well, we would, yeah, it depends on the timing. We would need to either update and reduce the rate if we knew that prior to adoption of the budget.
The question I have is, and you may not be able to answer, is this level of investment likely to happen in rugby sport regardless of the path that's taken? Because, and if we don't have the answer, that's in factoring into the budgetary process. I think that's part of the consideration. If the council is going to spend this quantum of money regardless to support the community, then there's a sound justification to increase the rates. Whether it falls on balance sheet capital or an expenditure is actually irrelevant. That's an accounting exercise only, not a cash flow funding problem. The funding requirements, the drawdowns from LGFA, wherever you borrow the money from, the rates, the fixing, all that would be exactly the same if you're looking to spend this quantum of money in the next 2 years. I guess part of the consideration by council needs to be, if this doesn't go ahead in its current or proposed form, should I say, while you go through the prudential, is council likely to commit that level of funding to capital works to support the community? And if it is, then it's, to me, there is a logic in inclusion. And I appreciate you may not be able to answer that right now.
So what I can say is that it is included in the endorsed long-term financial plan.
Okay. Which implies, I'm happy to connect dots, implies there is an intent.
That's actually this project, this cost, without the partnership.
I appreciate that. My question, the essence of the question was, should this not occur, is that quantum to be spent on rec and sport in other means? Therefore, it would be of the same amount, and hence inclusion in budgeting is warranted. So I guess the problem is we're having shots in the dark here.
Yeah.
Right. And so we could kick around variations of this all the long day. The question, it comes down to the probability of council expending that money in the next 1 to 2 years as scheduled. That's really what the conversation is. How? That's a different conversation for the chamber. From our budgeting perspective and the lens that we're putting on, I mean, maybe what we can do is just keep warning to the council in their consideration of the budget and aligning it with the probability of spending on the rec and sport precinct or rec and sport support within the city of Victor Harbour. But I guess that's really all we can do, is just call out that if you're going to include it, because the council will do what the council chooses, we're just an advisory arm. If you're going to do it, make sure that you've got an element of certainty in mind before you include it in the budget and rate setting.
There's also some timing which is there as well though, David. If we increase rates now and we don't spend the money for 8 months, then we're hitting rate pays effectively 12 months too early. So I do have some sympathy for Michael's point there.
I don't disagree. It's not an uncommon situation, unfortunately. The audit was based on best knowledge, and that's what I'm saying. Before locking this budget, including, in the first instance, a $4 million expenditure, there needs to be an element of certainty by the elected members before they approve. That's all. I guess that's how I'm trying to get back to. What is this city's purpose? And it's a challenge to make sure that the elected members are thinking through risks accordingly.
I would recommend council endorse a budget with such a significant rate increase and capital costs, and still there is a signed contract to deliver this thing. That would be what I would consider as practice. I think going early on something like that is very risky to do.
Yeah, so I think that there is a high level of certainty, which I would categorise as what you say, a high level of certainty. restrictive because we just are.
Yeah, it's about timing when this is included in the budget, and it's a difficult one. So, you know, a scenario might look like continuing negotiations, the budget goes out to consultation to the community, contracts are signed in July, and then the budget goes out to the community. Or any budget might already be endorsed, has to go to the budget review. Without knowing that it's a very difficult part, all I'm saying is that to put a lot of focus on the community without seemingly certainty of the project on air or timing of it is a different thing than they generate our answers on a community member.
And so Michael, in your situation, your scenario, if it does go ahead in July or August, and we don't do a rate increase now, we effectively just push back the rate increase to 2026 to 2027.
Which is we can't catch up, right? And that's
I don't think it's like that, because it's not, you can just adjust the percentage slightly, right? Or we're only talking, when I say we're talking 4 or 5 grand borrowings, right? Which is the interest component on the first year contribution. So if we can give a whole lot of stability like this, that's nice. I feel like the risk of that happening and us just deferring the rate increase for a year, remembering rather than 1 or 2, maybe 1 or 2, 5 or 1 or 3 catch it up. I feel like that's a more sensible approach. Yeah, it's really interesting in deciding what this way to allow these advisor council.
What's your view of the conversation that we've heard from independents today? And I fully appreciate you know what's to your full thought that the other child wants and shares sort of concerns. So
you are in a difficult situation because you don't know all the facts that's going on in discussions and what is being planned. I guess I would recommend a in-confidence meeting. Well, we want to do something after this one. If you want more information, we have to go in confidence and give you better understanding today. If you're not, that's fine. But there is a lot of potential. You know, we don't know, even as a member of the council, we don't know what's going ahead. We've only signed this agreement, and that's the only thing we've got to so far. So still to be open.
we've got anything here.
I think
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Discuss what are your opinions?
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'm not a member of the committee. Council is quite correct that we signed the Dist agreement and Council was very keen to go ahead with the negotiations and very keen to go ahead with the plan that we are doing. The concern that I have is that playing catch up with rates, and I know that comparing us with the side council and what's happening there is not a very good comparison, but that's what the rates at 40% instead of having to pay catch up over a number of years. Now I know you can't hear that what we're talking about, but I'm just worried about we don't know what's going to be happening in the next year with all sorts of other things that are going on and other possibilities, and so I would prefer that there's a small compromise that we're considering because of this, rather than having to make rise bigger next year because we might catch up as well. That's my only comments about it, and I think that talking about it in confidence amongst the community is probably a good idea.
I think that we'll have to schedule with another time, but where you're wanting to catch up with very conscious about missing catch up effect. Effectively on the government, it never happens. Everyone has a great intent next year, let them sit there and learn to do so because it was unnatural.
election year, and then you pay catch up at the last election year. You know, and I think, you know, as much as you'll see yourself from the committee in terms of the committee giving recommendations to elected members not to add anything outside the budget, and then time again, elected members do add things on the budget. I think that is very risky.
Just about time and the agenda that we have running, I don't want to cut short, but I think what we've ascertained is in regards to this matter in particular, the committee is informed to give a recommendation. I think that's just a hard reality of this situation. So what I'm proposing to the committee is we consider the rest of the budgetary items accordingly, and within our recommendation, we make reference to the fact that the committee hasn't received sufficient information to provide a recommendation to the council in regards to the $4 million or any of the components of the record support facility. However, the committee, you know, asks the council to consider future financial implications as well as current financial implications. I mean, that's a bit of a blanket statement, I get that, but I genuinely don't think that there is any other recommendation we provide, given that we don't have the same level of detail as the council has at this point in time. Before we move into other components of this budget and business plan, does the community in general agree with that?
I think that's okay. All I add to that is to highlight that there is a risk of increasing rates before launching the project. As in, if the project falls over, we increase rates for the reason that just to highlight, it does talk about concern about, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess it's the risk of obtaining, operating an asset that may not come to fruition. That's actually what it is. So the council considers the risk of operating an asset that may not come to fruition as part of their consideration, and the rest of it is that we aren't informed sufficiently to provide any further advice in regards to support record risk at this meeting. That said, let's look at the objections to that in essence. Are there any further points on we will review? Is there anything further in the budget, and is this something they'd like to bring to the committee for discussion?
Yes, one question. We spoke briefly about the implications of fixed asset regulations and the impact of depreciation, and I did see a lot in the sort of covering report, quantifying how that looks, and I guess the CVI, my question is the CVI rate increase sufficient to deal with the fixed asset regulation and depreciation tax that we have been hearing about?
Sorry, I was looking at a recommendation. Could you ask that again?
Yeah, so my question is about previous meetings about significant asset regulations and depreciation tax on them. In light of those discussions, we've got a CVI rate increase proposed, excluding the rate increases. Is that CVI increase sufficient to meet your council operating costs plus depreciation back to the previous regulation?
So through the chair, it is based on our modelling. So we had a year without rebates going to one council. We have open space is the one we really need to have done this year. We're not expecting a significant rebate for that. So we believe it is based on the modelling that we've done. We believe the index for an increase in depreciation. Just to note too, the deficit itself that's been presented also contains the corporate system replacement for the second year as well. So there's a combination of support and recruiting as well as that. So the 4.8 isn't enough to cover off on the corporate system.
I understand. Maybe I'm I thought that we had meetings this year talking about single asset readouts coming through this financial year, meaning that they need to be funded for next financial year. Is that not correct?
That's correct. We've included an indexation on depreciation for that purpose, but we don't believe that it would be a significant significant change because of the class that's being revalued.
So, Kelly, sorry, I'm jumping in. I thought stormwater and bridges, land goods haven't been revalued since 2020. I thought those have been revalued this year as well as open space.
No, they're not. They're being moved out to their 5-year maximum.
Right. Because I would have thought that infrastructure is going to get a huge depreciation markup. And just thinking about this playing catch up, there is that risk there. I think Michael's alluded to as well.
So we currently don't have the capacity and resources to do all of those revaluations, and we're concentrating on getting the assets commissioned and fully usable within one council before going down the path of doing those revals. So we're doing the ones that we absolutely have to do, which is open space and potentially bridges, depending if we get to it, but that may also be deferred to next year.
Yeah, but the community members are correct. You will actually be underrated this year based on historic rates. I appreciate the capacity restriction. Honestly, it was wanted 2-20% increases in W driven rate to contract costs. Doing was there, but if you've got a 4-year-old asset class from a government perspective, you've got 2020 ratings, which we would all love to see today. In many ways, you will be underrated. So I don't know this. I'm not saying force that we go through because I get the administrative burden, but there's a way of considering indexing it up in calculations forecasting that may be one path you can consider as well. So that you are
Agreed. Yeah, I agree, and I would love to put index on there, but it's essentially been tied to only raising rates by CVH. So there's no way that I can play catch up with that directive based on us not raising rates by CVI over a couple of years of COVID. And so we're hamstrung in terms of increasing rates by more.
Well, the councils understand that they're going to be underrated accordingly.
And it's not going to get in favour. I'm sure we're going to go through the conversation PRI where there was a revaluation done to an asset class and there was significant additional depreciation where it's $1 million facility there.
Yep.
So that's my concern, that $1 million being factored into the future rate increase being proposed.
It has in terms of the rates, the depreciation rates that we know of, yes, it has. But
it's the same that they're happening on the home government classes at the moment. That's existing.
yeah, and
So,
to be clear,
we've had many of them say asset revale million a year. That surely needs to fund the rate increase up by more than CPI to fund that component. Am I missing something?
no, you're absolutely correct. But rates, if we have a disinclination to raise rates by more than CPI, there's not much I can do about that. And to be absolutely fair with the forecast that we've done, it's based on information we know. We haven't commissioned any of the assets in one council, and we haven't run depreciation yet this year. So it's based on our intermediate position for 2023.
Yep. This is great. Since we've got resolutions flying around, we'll get to the points of the moment, and then actually start looking at it. So next is start drafting the first one, just take a quick look, and then I can go to this one at the moment, I think. Who's yeah, I think that's the first point. And the second point is, let me just call it out for a moment. Basically, due to constant increases in unit rates to assets, maintain a current market value, increasing the cost of asset construction production having factored into future rating. Which is really, I mean, is that what we're talking about?
That's the second limit. The first limit for me is that it appears by the reading document that council is raising rates by CVH at 4.8%, which without the regulation would mean that councils could effectively pay more wages, pay more materials contracts in line with CVH. However, there was a significant revalue during 2024 that is yet to be funded by AAs. So the first chunk of that 4.8% rate increase is going to disappear in depreciation and not be there to fund wage growth, to fund materials contracts and other things. So the second thing is what you're saying, that the first thing is that we haven't seen any, I guess, any analysis to, I guess, demonstrate the extent to which an increase in rates is required to cover the regulations that occurred during 2025, during 2024. The same year,
Sorry, I thought those happened in 2023 and they've been factored in already. I think it's the asset classes that are going to be revalued in 2024. They haven't been revalued. Is that?
No, I think they missed the 24 rate set because they came to do like after it was just got up to 23 orders, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, but in terms of, so we missed it 2023, 24, and so the 24, 25, we believe it's covered, although we have ripped the budget to back to its bones, essentially in every other area to accommodate.
But the bonus is that $1 million is still missing ultimately from the 24 year end. We'll see how that financials come through ultimately.
Yeah.
There's been some other form of rationing dollars, but we missed $1 million assets being underfunded by $1 million in 24 financial year. I mean, that's a point. That's 21. Yeah. Okay. So that's what we're doing.
So the question is it reasonable to hold rates at CVI when limited is fully informed that we haven't really got the capital time before we start dealing with that increasing costs of real expenditure?
So the issue with the community's concern that raising rates by CVI will not cover.
The community's concerned.
Good, the community's concerned. Council raising rates by CVI. What's that? Will not sufficiently fund cover their businesses there.
I mean, it really came to that is will sufficiently fund increasing the depreciation as a result of recent asset regulations.
Yeah, there's a lot of thinking is moved off. So community because it's not revaluation is the mechanism attached to the rate, right? Because we're not going to post that condition as appropriate because it's not that's a different conversation. It's a Nigeria problem. So what we're talking about is the cost of the unit of production. So really the contract costs is what we're talking about more specific than just trying to distill it down to the root cause. So communities and council raising rates by CVI not sufficient fund increases in asset values as a result prepare the asset future draft to do it. So it really is coming down to, we're not funding, and therefore not meet these programs. Without future experiences. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Well, the issue of future experiences, with future experiences, it's just a portion of large experiences. Yeah, nice way of saying that. Okay. Alright. Is that capture the conversation, please? Sorry. I actually think that our future increase is significantly above CPI. I mean, because what we're saying now is it should currently be above CPI because it's not sufficient. CPI isn't sufficient in today's world. Right? So we have to be above CPI to be sustainable. If we don't, we're going to have to be significantly above CPI. Ultimately, catch up. Okay, great.
Sorry, I'll you guys probably closer to this than I am, but I figure replacing the cost of assets has gone up by a lot more than CPI in recent years. So the CPI is not even the right measure here.
Correct.
No, that's correct. It's the capital side of the CPI is more between 9 and 12%.
Yeah.
Well, so it's a worth noting that.
I don't think it's for us to call out because certain risks for council and administration considered in the budgetary process. I think that's our role. What that is, let the administration for council or anything. Yeah. No, just as much as the time, and we scheduled to 4:30 for everything. It was fine. It is fine, thank you. Okay, so we are just got a bit of a agenda to go through. I see a little rush the budget, but it would be quite pointed, I think, we need more right now. So
one other thing we need to know is that CVH is kind of always bringing to the March quarter rather than waiting.
yeah. Further adding to the point that you guys want to cover. Yeah. Was there anything else you want to raise?
I think I've done enough.
No, it's alright. Anything further?
Just in terms of renewals, I see we're saying our renewal ratio is going to be, I think, 76% or so. I take that over a 3-year period, that's a rolling average. What are we looking at for the 1 year for the budget year?
So that is the 75.6 for that for the 1 year. For the rolling average is not dissimilar, but again that will depend on how much we get done to the 30th of June this year.
I see. I guess just looking at this SOZA report for Victor, they were somewhat critical of the renewal ratio over the last few years being around the 70% mark. It feels like 76% is still too low and outside our range. I would have thought we should be suggesting to the change that renewal ratio should be within the target range, 90 to 110%.
Agreed.
Just be anything on the point on the institution.
I do agree, and to further make that point worse is that ratio is based on spend, not activity. And as costs increase, the reality is from when the original plan was set, which is less in actual output or asset renewal, because everything's accelerating. So that's much more ratio. It's the best I think we've got.
surplus ratio itself is not a problem because it's a temporary non-recurring expense item. I wouldn't have anything to say that this year by making that clear. Because I don't have issues if you go into operate deficit 2 years time and it's still increasing.
Yeah. I don't disagree. The committee says okay with it. Yeah, maybe right. It's simple as the committee has no objections. This is the beginning of the paragraph. The committee has no objections to recurring operating deficit in relation to the proposed plan. Then the rest of it will take place.
It's in relation to the proposed. And then just
Okay, next one at the beginning of that paragraph, it will be context. So, thank you. Okay, so I'm sending out the last call outs. Can I please ask that we, subject to the documents raised to the council's consideration, we recommend, well, I guess we're recommending budget here, subject to,
I think recommending the budget to go back to council. I think that's what we do. I don't think we're recommending the budget. I think we're recommending council. This is our, maybe that's essentially. We make a recommendation for the budget. I'm not comfortable saying that actually we're hard consultation based on that.
we could take a minimal portion if you'd like, so it just reads that the Audit Risk Committee provides following feedback.
Okay, very good. Please. Thank you. Take everyone here. All right,
South Coast Television, your community, your voice.